We're probably live right now. This is kind of been my experience. Okay.
Do you not get to see?
Yeah. All right. So we are officially live, guys. I'm gonna check on my Facebook just to make sure. But thanks for those of you that are joining in right now and potentially are going to watch us later. Let me make sure. Yeah, we are live. Okay. So I have this posted publicly, so I might just give a little quick overview of who I am. I know most of you obviously know who I am if you're my friend, and who this man is who's sitting next to me at 9 o'clock at night. So my name's Courtney Mason, and this is my husband, Doug. We've been married for what, 12 years now. And hey, Leslie. Thanks for hopping on. So, hey, Kevin. Oh, that's weird. Kevin's watching us.
I learned something about anxiety.
You probably need this, Kevin, so watch the whole thing. So I have kind of my own history as far as health issues and things. And so I normally don't post this kind of stuff on my personal page. I do have a business that I started a couple years ago called The Natural Motive. And really it was out of just my own passion for wanting to help people with some natural health solutions because of the things that I went through with myself. And so I've been doing that. I've been teaching about essential oils and about natural health solutions for about 4 years, and I love it. And I love just interacting with people and just being able to help in any way that I can. So as we've all been kind of stuck in our homes, I thought about creating this series. And so it's every Wednesday night, just having kind of a holistic kind of interview series of just different topics and different people to talk with. Last week I interviewed Tanya from Lily Hollow Homestead. So she's an herbalist. And I really wanted to post this on my personal one just so that I could get this information out to a lot of people, to the masses. So the ones that may not know about The Natural Motive, then I wanted to be able to kind of get this out there. So tonight we're going to talk about anxiety. And I'm sure if you haven't dealt with anxiety in the past, maybe necessarily, you may be experiencing some of it now. So Doug and I talk about this a lot. It's kind of, Doug has a personal history about it. So I asked him if he would be willing to hop on with me tonight and just kind of talk about his own personal history of what he's had to deal with. And also just to see if there's things that he could potentially talk about that may help you recognize what anxiety is, recognize panic attacks. Because to those of you that have experienced, especially panic attacks, can be really scary. And it can be scary for the person that is watching it happen to them as well. So I don't know, we just wanted to hop on, and Doug's been really amazing at always being open and sharing his story with people, and has always had a passion for wanting to help people who suffer with this, because I don't think it's one of those things that kind of feels like you don't want to talk about it because it feels embarrassing. Maybe. And so we thought tonight we would just spend some time talking and kind of defining what anxiety and panic attacks are, and just really talk about some of the things that he's used, some kind of tips and tricks and things that he has done himself that he's been able to use as relief, and just really kind of have a truthful discussion about it. So I'm going to kind of play the interviewer. So this might be a little awkward, but I'll ask him some questions, and then hey Bob, hey Abby, we will open it up. So stay on, guys, and ask questions. I can see your comments, and then we'll kind of open it up and ask some questions, be honest, and we'll just go from there. All right, so Doug, can you let's just start by kind of giving us a brief overview of just your own kind of personal experience. Where did it all start as far as your anxiety and kind of panic attacks? So just kind of give us a brief synopsis of kind of your past history with it.
Sure. I think my anxiety started in, I'd say, about 5th grade. I was diagnosed with a heart condition in 4th grade, and basically my heart would just go way too fast for no reason. And so when I knew that I would have these attacks where my heart would race to like 250 beats a minute while I was just sitting there. And so after that started to happen, my brain just continued to like wait for it to happen every day. And so that is where my anxiety started, where my brain was in this constant fear of like, when is it going to happen again? And so then that continued to, I'd say, exacerbate to everything else in life. So it was just continual worry. Everything became a big deal. And this is like, again, this is in fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade. It was just continually scared and worried and fearful. And that's kind of how anxiety started. I wouldn't say I had a true panic attack until probably more like high school. Um, but I would say that was the start to the anxiety, or what they consider general anxiety, which is just everyday anxiety.
Okay. So for those of us that may be like, okay, do I have anxiety? Have I ever experienced panic attack? Can you kind of define, put like your own definition of like, what is anxiety? Maybe what are some signs and symptoms of it? And then, differentiate that between like a true panic attack, and same thing, like what are some common, now everyone's going to be different. But there are, I think, some general kind of guidelines between like, this is anxiety, like you said, like just kind of generalized anxiety. And then this is like a true panic attack.
Yeah, I mean, I would say anxiety is more of the day-to-day worry. So catastrophizing, so basically worried about things that you know or you think are going to come true, but most likely don't. Especially around like this coronavirus stuff. Every time you walk out of your house, you're worried you're going to get it. You're worried that just breathing the air, you're going to get it, or touching a box, you're going to get it. We've been told those are real fears, but we just extend that on to like, especially people with anxiety, then you worry about everything. You worry about touching anything or breathing or whatever. So I think anxiety is more the day-to-day worry, the day-to-day overactive worrying, versus a panic attack kind of is it's kind of a bucket of symptoms that come on really quickly. And they last for a little bit of time and then they kind of go away. It's not like an ongoing day-to-day thing. Now you can have panic attacks every day, but it kind of happens and then it goes away. And the panic attacks, I mean, you guys may know this or you may not, but you've heard of the fight or flight syndrome. So basically, like, our bodies are tuned as like cavemen were, to where if there's present danger, you either have to fight or you have to run. And so our bodies are primed to, in stressful situations, to either fight or get out of the situation and run. And so a panic attack is where that's happening, but for no reason. So you could be laying in bed at night and all of a sudden you get this, you're short of breath, you feel like you can't catch your breath, and you feel like your brain is just running and spinning. You might get a little dizzy, and you just feel like you just don't, sometimes you feel like you actually want to run, you want to get away from the situation, or you just feel like you're kind of going crazy. That is a panic attack. And so what's interesting about panic attacks is, as you start to have a panic attack, you're worried about the symptoms, which causes more panic. And so it's really hard because you get into a loop. Your brain gets into a loop where it's like, I'm panicking, I'm worried about what I'm going through, which makes it worse. And then you don't know how to get out of it. So the difference, I would say, is day-to-day worry versus like onset symptoms all at once that last for a little bit of time and then go away.
And I would say too, this, you can absolutely add to this. So someone that, we've been married for 12 years, but been together for 3,000. So I feel like I've learned the kind of signs and signals and kind of patterns, just watching you go through it. And for me, if someone that never really went through anxiety like he did at a young age, and panic attacks, I didn't understand it. And so I wanted to talk a little bit about that too, is like, I think there needs to also be conversation about, how does somebody, which we'll get into, like, how does somebody who has anxiety, has panic attacks, how do you mitigate them? What are some things and steps that you can do on a daily basis to try to calm your body down? We'll talk a little bit about like the actual biology of what goes on. But I think as somebody that you're either married to, or a loved one, children, or, even, your mom or dad that's going through it and you don't personally understand it, it can feel really frustrating because you're just like, well, just snap out of it. Like, I don't understand this. This doesn't make sense. Why are you worried about this? And I have more empathy for him now because we have had to have like serious conversations and be really truthful and have hard truths of saying like, it's frustrating for me, but I also have to understand how it is for him. And for someone that's never gone through that, it takes a long time to really kind of understand it. And I started listening to some, audio things for people that have anxiety so I could understand it better for him. I even read a couple books on it. So I think encouraging people that maybe have someone that they're really close to that deals with anxiety and panic attacks, I think it has opened my eyes. And I'm still really bad at it as far as always being sympathetic to him. But I think I've gotten better over the years. But just, trying to be more open-minded to how they're feeling, trying to put yourself in their shoes, even though it can be really hard and really frustrating, and just having open conversations about it for both of you on both ends. But I mean, that was kind of a hard struggle for me. Is like, I just didn't understand, what it was that he was going through. And I couldn't really put, I just like, why can't you just stop thinking that way? So maybe talk a little bit about, to be truthful, like, what does it feel like for people? This might help people resonate with you a little bit of like, what does it feel like going through anxiety and knowing that there's not a lot of people that can really understand what you're going through?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's, unless you've had anxiety or have anxiety, you're not going to understand what it feels like. I think, and it's going to feel very foreign. So it's going to be like, I don't understand why you can't just stop thinking that way, or why can't you just not have a panic attack? Why are you overreacting? So I think the most important thing that I did was when I was in college, it got really bad. And, Courtney and I were together at college, and obviously we were about an hour and a half, 2 hours from home. And I had got a hernia surgery. I ended up getting a really bad MRSA staph infection, and that just threw me for a loop. I mean, my anxiety was, way overactive every single day, like ruining my day-to-day life. And what I found is like, my parents didn't really know what to do with it. Courtney didn't know what to do with it. And so I ended up finding a psychiatrist, and I remember going into his office and saying, I think I'm going crazy. And he said, well, the good news is like crazy people don't think they're going crazy. So if you think you're going crazy, you should be fine. But, I think the most important thing is unless you're around someone that has gone through it, they're not going to understand it. So the best thing to do is to find someone like a psychiatrist or psychologist or what I ended up going to was a counselor, that they may even not have gone through it, but they understand how to help you control it, and they're not going to judge you for it, and they're not going to say, snap out of it, or why are you doing this, or why are you thinking this way? So I would say for about a year in college, I was going about 3 times a week to a counselor where they were helping me identify what was causing the panic, what was causing the anxiety, and ways to get out of it. And that, I mean, I used those, that was how many, 13, 14, 15 years ago now. Yeah. And I use those same methods today because it doesn't go away. I mean, you can take the medication, you can learn the methods through the counselor. It's not going to ever go away. It's just going to be controlled. So when you learn how to control it, it's a day-to-day controlling the anxiety, and you start to see that it starts to go away, and then when it comes back, you know how to control it better. And you can help the other person with you, like your wife or your support person. They will better understand how to control it with you as you go through those methods.
Yeah. And I think as you have those conversations with each other and you're kind of honest, I know I have picked up on some of his kind of signals and warning signs. I think knowing that him being in an extended period of high amounts of stress, we both know that that's usually a good foundation, a precursor of a potential, worse anxiety or kind of panic attack. Because, on a biological sense and what your body's going through, Doug mentioned it earlier, your body is stuck in what we call like fight or flight. So, our ancestors way back when, they used that. Your body naturally has that reaction to get you out of a threatening situation. So you have your adrenal glands, which are like about the size of a walnut, that sit kind of on the back, like above your kidneys. And so they're really there to create the cortisol hormone, which is released, and it's really a protective function for whenever you're in a situation that you need to fight or flight. But now we're just in constant states of these fight or flight modes, right? So we're constantly thinking, like Doug was saying with anxiety, where you have thoughts all day long. It's not just a one thought here, one thought there. It's the constant, self-talk in your head, things you're worrying about. We have high stress, jobs and situations, and everything's fast paced, and so we now live in a world where that stress and anxiety level is way higher than what our bodies are really, I believe, made to be able to take in. We have way too much information. Information is great, but being able to have like your phone constantly on you, and I'm guilty of that, and your computer and your laptop and all this stuff, it's so much information at once that our brains just can't handle all of it. So we constantly are in this fight or flight. So our adrenal glands are constantly working all the time. They're firing. And they've actually done studies where they've shown people that have passed away. That sounds a little more, but people have passed away that they had, anxiety or thing issues. And they've looked at their adrenal glands, and they noticed that the walnut-sized adrenal gland has shrunk down to like this tiny little, almost like peanut size. And so you're just really really starting to affect our bodies in that way. And you start to see it in other things. So when Doug was talking about panic attacks, a lot of times what happens is, you've had maybe a month that was really, really stressful, or a situation that was really stressful, and a panic attack, more than likely, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, more than likely isn't going to happen right then and there as you're having that moment. A lot of times it comes after. And it's another way of your body telling you that you may not understand, may not be really fully recognizing that you are still in this fight or flight mode, but your body is saying, I can't handle this anymore. I am just burned out. So with adrenal fatigue, if you're constantly tired, you just can't get, motivation to be moving and going. And there's just lots of like the chronic fatigue and even pain and things like that are a lot of sign and symptoms that you have adrenal fatigue, that you're overutilizing those adrenal glands, that even having a hard time losing weight, that can also be an issue because you got high amounts of cortisol levels at all times. And like Doug was saying, you kind of get stuck in these loops. So even if your subconscious mind is really powerful, so you may not be consciously thinking, I'm feeling really anxious right now, but it's those constant, throughout the day kind of buildup of anxiety and anxious thoughts that just sit there, and your brain is thinking, I need to be fighting or flighting. And so it can really be detrimental to your health, like long term. So it really is paramount that if you're feeling like this is becoming an issue, that you seek the help to really start addressing it and have those honest conversations with whoever that is that's your support person, to say like, I need help. And it's not a shameful thing. It's so detrimental to your long-term health, that you really have to get it, kind of under control. So let's kind of talk about some practical things that you learned. And you talked about, that the counselor kind of taught you how to recognize what was causing it. And then I know she did a lot of things to like induce that panic in you, so that then she could teach you in the moment of how to calm yourself down. So maybe give some of that examples so people can maybe start, implementing some of that for themselves.
Yeah, and I think going back to what you were just saying about the like warning signs, I think that's a good point to make, where a lot of times the stressor could be weeks prior to when the anxiety and panic actually clicks in. A good example is this. I work in healthcare. I've been working 12, 13-hour days on this COVID-19 stuff. And when this all came about, I didn't feel super anxious about it. But like 2 weeks in, I woke up and was having kind of a panic attack, which I haven't had for years. And I knew, I was thinking like, this has just been built up for the last couple of weeks, and it's just now coming out. So some of the things I've learned either through counselor or just finding things on my own that have helped. For anxiety, I have found that, I don't know if all people that are anxious are like this, but I have found like sitting still actually makes me more anxious. So like Courtney finds a lot of relaxation in just having quiet time and sitting on the couch and journaling. For
It makes him
me,
anxious watching me do it.
yeah, mine is like I need to get outside and take a long walk and be moving and like get my brain to completely focus on a lot of things to completely get away from my anxiety. So the one key tip I've found is you have to get your brain to think about something else. So to get it away from whatever it is that's making you anxious, you have to think about something completely different. Um, so that's like listening to music while you take a walk, or some people find like obviously exercise really helps you refocus your brain on something else. Courtney introduced me here recently to something called Qi Gong, which is kind of like Tai Chi. The Chinese believe you have to like reset your Qi, but it's just a way to relax your body. Um, Another tip I found is when you have anxiety, you tend to have tense muscles. So during the day, at the end of the day, you probably feel like your shoulders are really tense, your lower back. It's because all day long you're tensing muscles. So one thing that I have found is really helpful is muscle relaxation. So basically, like if you're laying in bed, you start at your feet and you tense each muscle from your feet all the way up to your head. You squeeze the muscle and then you relax it. So you go feet, then legs, and thighs, and stomach, and all the way up to your head. You tense and then you relax. And what it's doing is it's making you aware of where the tension is, and then you're relaxing those muscles. And you'll find like a lot of relief just from doing that, getting that tension out of your muscles. Um, and Courtney talked about this whole like where you make yourself have the anxiety like the counselor was doing, then you get out of it. So what the counselor was doing for me is my anxiety came from this thought that my heart, right? I always worried my heart was going to start racing. So what she would do is we would do things like run up a flight of stairs, and then we would sit down and she'd say like, well, how do you feel? And it's like, well, my heart feels like it's going really fast. And she's like, do you feel like you're dying? No. Do you feel like you need to go to the hospital right now? Can you breathe? Can you see okay? Are you dizzy? So like, getting yourself to have a little bit of the feeling that makes you anxious, and then going through like, are you okay? And you find out like, yeah, actually I'm okay. Like I'm having the symptom, but I'm fine. So that's one way that the counselor would work with you, is getting you to have some of those symptoms that cause anxiety and panic, and then helping you work through like, but you're okay. Flying is a big one for me. Every time I get on a plane, I get very anxious, and it's because again that comes from claustrophobia. I don't like being in these tight spaces that I can't get out of. So another method I have found that's really helpful is you basically write down on a piece of paper all of the worst case scenarios, right? So let's just do the flight example. The plane could have an engine problem and it will crash. That's a pretty worst case scenario. Or the flight has a problem and can't take off for 2 hours. I'm going to be stuck in this thing for 2 hours with no air, whatever. So what you do is you write down like these worst case scenarios, and then, or you write down these anxieties, like this is what I'm nervous about. And then you kind of say, well, what's the worst thing that will happen? Right? Or how likely is this to really happen? So like, how likely is it this plane's really going to crash? Not very likely. How likely is it that what's the worst case scenario of being stuck on a plane for 2 hours before it takes off? There's really not that big of a deal. So you kind of go through those and you start to realize like these things I'm thinking aren't that big of a deal, even though I'm making them a really, really big deal. Or, they say the statistic is it's only like 8% of what we worry about ever really comes true, right? So you worry about things all day long, every day, and only 8% of those things in your life actually come true. That's a very small percentage. So really trying to ground yourself in what is your worry and what is the likelihood is actually going to happen. And even if it does happen, what's the worst case scenario if it does? Now, maybe plane crash isn't the best one because the worst case scenario is you die. But, you see where I'm going with this, right? Like worst case scenario is usually not as bad as it seems, and the likelihood that it's going to happen is probably very low. So that's another method, is just going through that process of writing your worries down and then figuring out how likely it's going to happen and what's the worst case scenario if it does. Um, and then for panic attacks, one of the things I have found to quickly get out of it um, is when you start to have the panic attack, go in the bathroom and run really, really cold water in the sink and put it in your hands and splash your face. Because what that does is it causes your brain to completely change focus into that cold water. So when you put really cold water in your face, it's completely making your brain stop what it's doing and focus on that experience of the cold water, and it will get you either out of the panic attack or at least lessen it very, very quickly. Um, I have found that to be one of the most effective methods to get out of a panic attack. Now, anxiety obviously is very different. That's a day-to-day thing, but panic attack, that's the one method I have found that really gets you out of it really quickly. Because if you have panic attacks, when you're in one, you can't think. Like Courtney tries to talk to me, or I remember she would try to talk to me through them, and you can't even focus. You can't think about what people are saying. You're trying to focus on like, well, I can't breathe right now. So that cold water method I have found works really, really well. The other thing is, and I'll go over some of these other things I do more on a day-to-day basis. So Courtney is obviously a certified oil coach. She's a doTERRA wellness advocate. So some of the oils I have found work really well for anxiety and actually for panic attacks too. So this one is called Breathe. And Breathe is really just, I would kind of relate it to like putting Vicks rub on your chest. But when you put this on your neck and your chest, what happens is your airways kind of open up. And so one obviously symptom of panic and anxiety is you tense your muscles, and the result of that is you kind of don't breathe right, so you somewhat hyperventilate. Especially in a panic attack, you're going to hyperventilate or feel like you're hyperventilating, and so you're so focused on trying to get your air. So when you put Breathe on, either day to day or during a panic attack, it helps open that, and you have less focus on that, and it actually just settles everything down. I found that to be super effective. Is either Breathe or honestly, if you don't have Breathe and you have a panic attack tonight, try Vicks. I mean, it does the same thing. But for day to day, I keep these roller bottles in my backpack when I go to work, just because before I go to a meeting or if I'm in a stressful situation. Sometimes I'll just rub this on my chest and I can take a deep breath and I feel a lot better. Another one that is similar, this one's called Motivate, and it has sort of like a peppermint smell to it, but it does a similar thing. Usually I'll put this on the back of my neck or on my chest. The other cool thing is this little like at where I work, you can't have diffusers that actually diffuse into the air, but this is just a lava rock that you can buy. I'm sure Amazon has them. doTERRA sells them.
Yeah.
But you can drop oils on top of this and it will diffuse. So I put this on my desk, and every morning I drop a few drops on this, and I can smell it as I'm working, and it just helps keep my brain, focused on that smell, and just lessens my stress level as I'm trying to work. Another one that doTERRA came out recently is Adaptive, and this is really focused on anxiety. They actually make this in a capsule. Sometimes it's a natural supplement. I take it in the mornings a lot, and it just helps kind of lessen the edge of your anxiety during the day. I'm not trying to sell any of this stuff, but I'm just saying that these are the things I've found for day-to-day management, because again, I've gone through years of counseling. I've gone through and just to let you know, I don't take any medications right now for this. I've just learned to manage it day to day, and I still have times where it gets really bad, but most of the time it's just kind of day to day management. It's honestly not been awful. It's not been bad since I've learned a lot of these methods. And then some of the other things, I know I'm rambling, but obviously, which I don't do good at, getting enough sleep is big. If you don't get enough sleep, it's going to be a lot worse. Taking breaks. I mean, right now I'm we're all forced to work at home. I've been working at home for 4 or 5 weeks now. Sometimes I am in the same room for 10 hours, skip lunch. I've been, and that starts to wear, and that's where I know that panic attack came from. So I'm intentionally trying to make sure I get out of the office for at least a half hour every day and just go outside for a minute. Or I've moved to where I'm looking out a window now so that I don't feel like I'm cooped up. That is huge, especially now that we're all having to probably work from home. You tend to not take breaks, and you tend to not realize how much stress you're causing yourself. And if you have anxiety, obviously that's going to make it a lot worse.
Yeah.
So I think that's the main tips that I can think of.
I wanted to share too, just from more of a kind of holistic mindset of body, and how we talked a little bit about, like, your adrenal glands, being adrenal fatigue, being in that constant fight or flight. But there has been, and you can just literally Google it, but there's tons of research out there now. I just taught a class last night about gut health, but there's a huge connection between the health of your gut, of your microbiome, and your brain. And so they have done research on, they call the gut like your second brain, because they've really kind of just scratched the surface of what all is actually happening within your microbiome. But it actually has direct correlation with, anxiety, depression, because there's a lot of things that are going on in your gut. So it's way more than just digesting your food. So I wanted to talk about that too, just so that you guys could really understand, like, a lot of times we have symptoms of things going on and we think of just the symptom. How do I treat the symptom? But we're not going to the root. And so I think what we wanted to try to do is, like, talk about, like, getting to the root, whether you're going to a counselor, talking to somebody that can help you go through that step by step, and then also looking at, like, what's happening maybe in my body that might be off balance, that could be also contributing to it. So within your gut, yes, you digest your food, your small intestines digest the food, and it releases the nutrients that your body needs into your bloodstream, and it protects all the bad things that shouldn't go in there out, and then obviously you get rid of them. But you actually have, what they have found is an entire, like, nervous system within the gut, within the lining of the gut. So you've got your central nervous system, and this is called the ENS, so this is like the enteric nervous system. And so it's really intelligent. They actually don't really know what all it does, but your brain actually, your gut actually sends signals up to your brain. So they say that, I've read research where every one signal that your brain sends to your gut sends 9 signals to your brain. So it is constantly talking back and forth. So think of it as like a two-way street. They're talking back and forth, but actually your gut is doing a lot more of the talking. The other things that happen within your microbiome, when I say microbiome, I just mean all of the good, and we have some bad bacteria in there that's on normal levels is fine, but it's all of the DNA and all of the good bacteria that's in the linings of your gut. And that has to be really balanced, because what happens in your gut is you also create the neurotransmitters and hormones. So all of those processes of, serotonin, which is what you need to be feeling good, those actually all happen and start within the gut. So if your gut lining is compromised and you have an imbalance there, then that can absolutely cause and correlate to depression, anxiety, mood swings. I've read research where they, took a group of people that were dealing with depression, and literally they had the group split up into half of them were getting a placebo, the other ones were receiving a probiotic. And at the end of the study, I forget how long the period was, but the people that had the probiotic daily, they actually had a significant decrease in the depression symptoms. And that's all it was added, was just a probiotic. So I think that's really important too. And I always want to mention that because, like I said, to me, that's really getting to the core of everything. And, medications, we're not ever going to say, like, don't ever take medications. There's a time and a place for sure where you're working with your counselor. I know with Doug, and everyone's going to be different, but with Doug, it was like, he was on the medication, but he told them, like, I want to make a plan up front of, doing this so that I'm not on this forever, so that I can, work through this. And that has been the case for 15 plus years. Mm-hmm. So, there are times where we need to be able to, utilize those tools. But I think just understanding even more so, like, what's going on in your body and with everything is really, really helpful. And I'll mention on the oils, again, I'm not trying to sell anything. That's not what this was about. But I think it's really important to know what your tools that you can have at your hands and at your fingertips, and why oils just in general work so well is because, like when Doug was talking about the cold water on his face and how it triggers your brain to just stop the thought process instantly, essential oils are about 70 times more powerful than like an herb. So when you put it in your cup of your hands and you breathe in deeply, it goes directly to your limbic part of your brain. So it goes through the olfactory nerve, which is attached to the limbic part of your brain. And in that limbic part contains like the hypothalamus and the amygdala and all the parts of your brain that are really kind of controlling your fight or flight response and memory and all those things. So it's really, really powerful and it's really quick. So just like splashing that water in your face, I mean, it'll work within seconds of breathing it in. So it's just another tool that you can have on hand to use to just kind of bring yourself back down into a calmer state. And your body is now signaling, your brain is now signaling, I don't have to be in fight or flight, I don't have to be in fear mode. And you can just kind of start breathing deeply. So I just wanted to talk about that too. So if you have more questions, about kind of like gut health and those kind of things, either message me personally and I can, we can talk about it, or, I have a video that I just talked a little bit more last night. That's on my newsfeed, so check that out. But I have some stuff in the Natural Motive as well. But we just wanted to get on here and just kind of give some helpful information and just kind of bring awareness to it, so that more people can talk about it and say, hey, I am struggling with this and I do need some help. So we are, Tanya says, yay for plants. Yeah, they really are amazing. And there's herbs too that you can take on a daily basis. Absolutely, that will help just kind of calm the nervous system and just kind of keep, lemon balm is amazing. I mean, we could go on forever with that stuff. But I just want you guys to know that there are tools out there. There are more natural tools out there that you can be utilizing that aren't going to have the side effects, and are really powerful. They are really powerful. And like Doug was saying with the breathe, you're just opening up your airways and you're increasing oxygen when your body is really fighting for that oxygen because everything is so tense. And like he said, if somebody talking to you to say, calm down, it doesn't work. So it's like you need something to trigger that part of your brain that's separate from what's triggering it to be in that fight or flight mode.
Yeah, and I think to add to that too is you have to kind of realize things that you do that sparks anxiety. And it's not that you have to completely stop doing those things, but you have to realize they are going to cause a symptom. So example would be, I have to watch caffeine. If I drink too much caffeine, sparks anxiety. Doesn't mean I don't ever drink caffeine. It just means when I do, I have to remember this is probably going to give me a symptom so that I'm ready for it. Coffee, right? If you drink coffee and you have anxiety, that's a stimulant. So it's going to probably create more of that anxiety response. But as long as you remind yourself you're going to have those symptoms, then you're kind of ready for them. Back to the gut thing, what's interesting is when we first moved out here, I remember I was working and like someone would bring donuts in the morning, and if I would eat a donut, like a half hour later, I would feel really anxious. I was like, what is going on? And so I talked to a doctor, and basically what I figured out was that when you eat like heavy food, it stimulates a nerve in your stomach called the vagus nerve, and that creates a response where it makes your heart speed up to make your metabolism start working, because you ate something heavy, your body needs to work to digest it, so your heart goes a little faster, your blood pressure might go up a little bit to try to get your body to break down that food. But what was happening for me is as soon as I would eat that, and a half hour later my heart would start, I'm so in tune to my heart that when it would start even going a little bit fast to do that, it was causing me to have anxiety. Did that mean that I stopped eating donuts? Absolutely not. I mean, I still eat things I shouldn't. But what happens now is if I eat something, I just know like this is probably going to give me a symptom in about a half hour, and knowing that that's going to happen when it does happen lessens the blow, and it allows me it doesn't lead to any more than just, oh, this is just the symptom of eating what I ate, versus, oh my gosh, my heart's beating so fast, something's wrong with me, which then would lead into panic. Now, I'm sure not everyone's is heart, but it could be anything. I mean, it could be that your anxiety makes you feel like you can't breathe well or hyperventilate, so when you eat something heavy and it stimulates that nerve, you're also going to get the symptom of like your breathing is a little bit different. Well, that could spark, oh, I'm having anxiety. So just recognizing what you do that leads to anxiety or panic allows you to be ready for it and prepare for it. And it's a struggle. I mean, that's why I said this is an everyday, constant struggle of trying to figure out what causes it, how to be ready for it, how to get out of it, how to prepare your body to get out of it. But as Courtney's kind of explaining, is there's a lot of things you can do to keep your body in a better state so that you hopefully don't even have the symptoms.
Yeah.
Which would be the ultimate goal.
Yeah, I mean, I think exercise, which we didn't even talk about, but that's a huge thing to make sure we're exercising. Whatever that looks like, it's not like one exercise is going to be like, this is it for anxiety. It's just doing something. It's that movement. We were created to move. We live a lot of really sedentary lifestyles. So I would say like our sedentary lifestyles naturally, our diet that we're eating, that 60, the American standard diet is crap, guys. It's really crap. And so, making sure that we are just, think of your body as a whole. I tell people all the time, like we've been kind of taught and trained to look at ourselves as parts and pieces and segments. And so, oh, my shoulder hurts, I need to fix the shoulder. But it's like, what else is going on, in the body? These are, our bodies were intelligently created to give us these signals for a purpose. We just have to make sure that we're paying attention and that we tend to them. And I know it sounds like, oh, we've got it all figured out. We don't, and I don't, and he doesn't. But, we're just being truthful with the things that we have learned. And, I think just looking at yourself as a whole person, thinking more of holistic care, meaning, exercising, whatever that is. If you have anxiety, I would recommend doing some type of yoga is amazing. Qigong is really amazing. You can find all this stuff on YouTube. So there's a lot of people right now that are not doing their businesses because they can't, that you can find online. So those exercise specifically are really grounding to the body and the nervous system. I mean, if you are dealing with anxiety, those things are really helpful to get you back grounded and to really just kind of calm that central nervous system and really just move your body in ways that really kind of release a lot of that tension, but in a relaxing way. So those I would recommend. But yeah, eating lots of fruits and vegetables, taking probiotics, taking digestive enzymes, those kind of things, drinking enough, just making sure we're not eating tons of sugar, fried foods, all those things. A lot of that stuff we're malnourished. And so all of your like I said, like the microbiome, all those things get out of balance and it can create havoc on the rest of your body. So trying to incorporate more natural solutions in your lifestyle is really helpful. But yeah, just really thinking about it as kind of a more holistic way, a new way to kind of look at taking care of yourself. I mean, we've got 2 young kids. It is hard to take care of yourself, but it's really detrimental over the long haul that if you don't. I mean, we've both experienced where it's like, oh, this is a warning signal that we're not getting enough sleep and we are not eating right or we're not exercising enough. So just paying attention to that. I open it up, guys. If you have questions, hey Grant, just said Doug. If you guys have questions, put them in the chat and we will stay on to answer any of those questions that you guys may have. So feel free to write those on because we can see them. That's just in general how many people I think are on Facebook. But yeah, I hope this is helpful for you guys. Thanks for being willing to be open and honest about anxiety and panic attacks. And it's helpful to just hear from someone that goes through it and that you can learn from them. And Doug's has always had a heart for helping those that have struggled with it for sure, because yeah, it's not fun. And we're all in a very heightened state of anxiety right now and stress. Yeah. Anything else you want to add to it? Does anyone have a question? Tanya says, I'd recommend milky oats and passion flower for adrenal fatigue. Awesome. and nourishing the nervous system. Yes. Maybe I'll have Tanya back on. So she's from Lily Hollow Homestead. So I had her on last week, but maybe I'll have her on again and we can talk specifically about anxiety and different things that we could be taking. Hi, Deanna. Miss you too. Abby, how do I go about getting some of okay. Abby, I will message you and we can talk more about that. But yeah, I'll message you about that oil. Yes, when I teach about essential oils, Breathe is the one that I tell people. I'm like, my husband that has anxiety, this is it. Because it has eucalyptus, it has peppermint in it, has cardamom. So those are the oils that just naturally open your airways, create that kind of sense of calm, and you can apply it to your chest, your neck, your pulse points, things like that throughout the day. And it really just kind of helps increase that oxygen
even make it into
flow.
a cough drop. So if you just want to,
yeah, it's really fantastic. I was trying to think if there's anything else that on the top of my. I feel like we've pretty much covered all of it. I think. Actually, what is kind of like I know you go for long walks. That's really helpful for you. Like you were saying, not sitting down and journaling and things like that. But are there other kind of exercises that help you specifically, like with anxiety? Like, is it better to do more cardio stuff? Do you feel like more fast-paced stuff, or is it better to do more like
I would say
calming?
I find when I do like long walks or when I'm doing like yard work, that kind of stuff helps a lot because I think it's just a little bit more strenuous. But yeah, definitely cardio. It's weird because in the beginning it's going to cause a little bit of anxiety because you're causing the same symptoms that anxiety causes. You're going to have your heart's going to race, you're going to breathe faster, so you're going to have similar symptoms. So if you have anxiety, sometimes exercising actually makes it a little bit worse at first because you have the same type of symptoms as you exercise, but kind of doing it over time obviously makes it a lot better. The thing I was gonna share and I forgot was we had one of the top breast cancer surgeons in the country did a talk I was at not long ago, and she actually she was just getting very stressed out. She was overworking herself and she had to take a little bit of a sabbatical, and she did a lot of research while she was on her sabbatical to figure out how to get her stress levels and anxiety down. I mean, she's doing surgeries every day, so she has to be able to do that. And she found that when they research or when they look at DNA strands under the microscope, they found that people that have really high levels of anxiety and stress, they can see that parts of the DNA gets frayed, and if you have less and less of that structure, you have a harder and harder time handling stress and anxiety. And so they found that the only way to rebuild that part of the DNA structure is to do three things, and it's exercise, good nutrition, and mindfulness. They found that mindfulness is actually one of the key things. And what mindfulness is things like meditation, qigong, yoga. All of those things play into mindfulness, which is just getting to a state of kind of, I mean, they say chi, but I guess it's just like getting your brain to a state of relaxation, and intentionally doing that regularly. Those three things together. This breast cancer surgeon. Well, what's going on? Oh,
did I end it? I might have ended it by accident.
Oh yeah, how did you end it?
I don't know.
Yeah, because we're this breast cancer surgeon. Well, let's stay on this.
Oh, we're still on.
We're still here. Sorry.
Might have ended it.
I don't know what just happened. Technology.
We are pros.
Pause that.
We are pros.
Anyway, long story short, it was very interesting to see someone that you would expect not to have these issues because she's literally doing invasive surgeries all day, every day. But she had to learn how to get herself to a state that she could control it, and that's how she said she's been able to do it, is that balance of the three. Bob, great question. And
Bob says there's a spiritual component.
Yeah, so I mean, obviously, people that know us well know that Courtney and I, both are Christians, and there definitely is. I mean, when I started out 5th grade, I mean, I've told people my story about just praying every night for years and years and years to heal my heart. And, continuing today, there's definitely prayer and faith play a huge part in controlling it. So part of when I think of mindfulness, even I think of prayer and staying close to God. I mean, I think that definitely is a key component as well.
Yeah, I mean, as far as my personal kind of what I feel like God has been telling me throughout this last, 5-6 years of my kind of own health journey is that as I look into science and as I'm researching more about the body, and I'm saying, look at your body as a holistic being and thinking about the signals that it's telling us, it is so beautifully created and designed, and God has given us so many amazing tools in nature that we can utilize to help our bodies, right? So that's why they work so well, is because they've been created by the same creator. And for me, it's just been kind of more of a spiritual worship to just understand just his wisdom and what he has created us to be. And it's just, it's mind blowing. Like, science is just scratching the surface, but he's the first one to create rest. He is the first one to ordain it, to tell us to rest. I was having some anxiety recently, and the verse kept coming to mind was in Psalms, and it's like, he makes me lie down by green pastures. And I kept getting stuck on the he makes me part. And I was like, that's interesting that I'm getting stuck on this, but it's because he's not asking us to lay down, to like, maybe you could take a rest. No, he's making us lay down because he cares for us deeply. And he wants us to have that rest with him. And so, Christ meditated, he went off alone all the time. So that he could be in prayer and be centered in God and just have that time. So it's like there's so many things that I think, wisdom wise, that God has ordained of just telling us to rest. Because this is why I think we started out by saying we live in a world now where we're just so bombarded with so much that I don't believe that's how it was ever really originally intended to be. And so now we're really starting to see the repercussions of it. And so, so that's a big part for Doug and I, when we talk about like the catastrophizing, for us, it's like God has promised to take care of us, and he does not promise that we're going to have a life of free from all pain and sorrow. He tells us that things are going to happen and that we are going to have pain and sorrow, but that he's never going to leave us. And so worst case scenario is that we have a God that loves us and has promised to take care of us, that he loves us more than the sparrows. We were just talking about this the other day. With the old hymn. But so yes, there absolutely is a spiritual component to it. And I don't know where everyone is that watches this, but we just pray for you guys that you would, that you could use this time of understanding who God has created you to be, and that he loves you, and that he wants you to be healthy and well and to be whole, because that's how he's beautifully created us to be. And so that's a big part for us too, and a big part for why I do the Natural Motive is I believe that God wants us to be to be whole in that health sense. Because when we're sick and we're constantly not feeling well and we're dealing with so many issues, and that stuff's going to happen, but when it's chronic, it's all you think about. You feel like you can't focus on anything else about serving other people or doing things in your community or whatever it is, because you're just you're not healthy and you're not well, you're not feeling, you're, full of life and things like that. So yes, we could go on for a whole nother hour probably about that. Bob is fantastic at asking the right question at the right time to get your brain going. Okay.
We should have Bob on.
Yeah, we could have Bob on for sure. Just calling you out, Robert. Okay, if there's not any more questions, I don't see any more. We've been talking for a long time. So thanks to everybody that stuck it out and has been watching us this whole time. But hope this was helpful. And message me if you guys have any other questions. And stay healthy, stay safe. And maybe we'll do this again. Doug, you did a great job. First
Hope
time.
I get ice cream.
We just talked about healthy food. All right, guys. We'll talk to you soon.